Determine the limit as x approaches positive infinity and as x approaches negative infinity of 4x squared minus the square root of 16x to the fourth plus 8x squared minus 3. Since the powers of the x terms are even in each of the expressions, the limit as x approaches positive infinity and the limit as x approaches negative infinity will have the same result. And we can calculate the limits simultaneously. The limit as x approaches positive or negative infinity of 4x squared minus the square root of 16x to the fourth plus 8x squared minus 3. The first thing to do is plug a positive or negative infinity in for each of the x's. Only the highest power terms will matter here. There's a 4x squared, and there's a square root of 16x to the fourth, which will also be 4x squared. Positive or negative infinity squared is positive infinity times the 4 will be positive infinity, minus positive or negative infinity to the fourth power will be positive infinity times the 16 will be positive infinity, and the square root of positive infinity is positive infinity. The result is a positive infinity minus a positive infinity. We have the infinity minus infinity indeterminate form here. We will need to rework this. Since it resulted from a root combination, a root involving the variable x in some way added or subtracted together with at least one other term, we can make use of the root conjugate. So I will rewrite the entire limit exactly as given. And we can now formulate the conjugate. The conjugate is the same two terms found in the root combination, but opposite sign between them, so plus. We will put the root conjugate over itself, a form of 1. Therefore, when we multiply, we will not be changing the value, just the look. And we can put the original over 1 so that we can multiply the denominators as well as the numerators. In the numerators, we have a root conjugate pair. We will FOIL it out. First, 4x squared times 4x squared will be a 16x to the fourth. Outside, 4x squared times a positive root. Inside, negative root times 4x squared. They will cancel each other out. And last, a negative square root times a positive square root will be a negative, and then square root squared, which cancel each other out, leaving the entire expression 16x to the fourth plus 8x squared minus 3, but we have to subtract that entire quantity, so it's in parentheses with a minus sitting in front of it. All this divided by, in the denominator, 1 times the conjugate will be just the conjugate. In the numerator, we have a 16x to the fourth, and then we can distribute the minus sign into these other three terms. Each of them will have an opposite sign, so it'll be a negative 16x to the fourth, a negative 8x squared, and a positive 3 over the denominator, which is left alone. In the numerator, we can combine together like terms, the 16x to the 4 and the negative 16x to the 4 can cancel. Left over in the numerator is a negative 8x squared plus 3 over the denominator of 4x squared plus the square root 16x to the 4th plus 8x squared minus 3. Now that it's simplified, the next thing to do is try plugging a positive or negative infinity in for each of the x's. Only the highest power terms matter here in the numerator and denominator. In the numerator, that'll be the negative 8x squared. In the denominator, will be the 4x squared as well as the square root of the 16x to the 4th. In the numerator, positive or negative infinity squared is positive infinity times a negative 8 will be a negative infinity. In the denominator, positive or negative infinity squared is positive infinity times a 4 is a positive infinity, plus positive or negative infinity to the 4th power is positive infinity times 16 is a positive infinity. The square root of positive infinity is positive infinity. Positive infinity plus positive infinity is positive infinity. The result is negative infinity over positive infinity. We have the infinity over infinity indeterminate form here. We will need to rework this. And it will be reworked by dividing both the numerator and the denominator by the highest power of x in the denominator. There is an x squared, and there is an x to the 4th inside of a square root, which will also be an x squared. However, since x is also approaching the negative infinity, we would divide the numerator and denominator by negative x quantity squared, but negative squared is positive x squared, so the numerator and denominator are divided by x squared for both infinities. Since everything is even powers on x's here, the results of these limits to approach to positive infinity and negative infinity will be the same. Let's divide the numerator and denominator by x squared. In the numerator, each term can be put over x squared. In the denominator, the first term can be put over x squared, and the entire square root can be put over x squared. In the numerator, the first term, the x squareds will cancel, leaving a negative 8. The second term, there are no x's to cancel. It will remain as a 3 over x squared. In the denominator, the first term, the x squareds will cancel, leaving a 4. And then the root can be extended over the x squared by rewriting it as x squared squared, because the square root of x squared squared will be x squared. The numerator will be left alone. First term in the denominator will be left alone. Inside the square root, each term can be put over x squared squared. 2 times 2 is 4. That will be x to the 4th. Each term can be put over x to the 4th. 16x to the 4th over x to the 4th plus 8x squared over x to the 4th minus 3 over x to the 4th. leaving the numerator alone, leaving the first term in the denominator alone. Each term under the square root can have x's cancel where possible. The first term, x to the fourth, will cancel in the numerator and denominator, leaving a 16. In the second term, 2 of the x's from the denominator will cancel with the 2 x's in the numerator, leaving behind a positive 8 over x squared. The third term, there are no x's that will cancel. It will remain as a negative 3 over x to the fourth. Each term that is a constant divided by x to a positive power will go to 0 as x approaches positive infinity or negative infinity. The result is negative infinity plus 0 divided by 4 plus the square root of 16 plus 0 minus 0. Negative 8 plus 0 is negative 8. Over 4 plus the square root of 16 plus 0 minus 0 is 16. The square root of 16 is a 4. 4 plus 4 is an 8. Negative over a positive is a negative. The 8's can cancel, leaving a 1. And that is the result of each of the two different limits.